He's a rare combination of political maturity with intellectual brilliance, a combination which is very rare among Indian politicians.
He can be viewed to be a great modernization of the internal security apparatus of India.
His capacity to master detail is enormous, and he is a completely committed modernizer and reformer.
He sees the big picture for India and where it can go, so he has a vision.
It was in Chennai where we moved when I was very young, in a missionary-run high school, and then Presidency College and Law College. So I got elected to Parliament on end of 1984, and I moved to Delhi. They offered textiles, and I said, I can't do textiles. So Rajiv ji said, well, we have nothing else, everything is taken. Then I said, I go back. Then he ran through the list and said, what is this? Personnel, that's the only vacancy available. That's how I became the minister in the Department of Personnel. Huge changes were made. The rules were rewritten. Policies were rewritten. For example, the rules relating to maternity leave were rewritten. There was, I remember, a rule which said that a lady who was unmarried was not entitled to maternity leave. And I said, this doesn't make sense. The maternity leave is for the welfare of the child and the mother. And whether she is married or not, she is a mother, she will be a mother, and there will be a child. So she's entitled to maternity leave irrespective of whether her status was married or not. In the middle of '86, when Shri Arun Nehru fell ill and then had to withdraw from government, he resigned a couple of months later. So I was told to hold additional charge of internal security. For the first time, we took stock of the status of each force. It had never been done before. Just to take stock. Number, recruitment, what weapons they had, what training facilities they had, what training programs they were going through. And the DGs were asked to prepare a status paper.
Chidambaram, as Commerce Minister, gave an opportunity for business to get on with business, instead of running to Udyog Bhavan.
Within days after the devaluation, I think the first week of July 1991, we were called to say that cash compensatory support will be abolished. And I took the matter to the Prime Minister and said, listen, no Commerce Minister can begin his term by abolishing a concession to the exporters. So it has to be a package. I think Mr. Narasimha Rao saw the point, and Dr. Manmohan Singh also saw the point. So we announced a package.
We gave up the inward-looking approach to the broader outward-looking approach. The import substitution policy was given up. Therefore, we had to knock down the various quantitative controls on imports and work towards a system in which our exports can expand and effectively meet the requirements of the balance of payments.
And that was the beginning of trade policy reform. We had gone to a dual exchange rate, and therefore we wanted for the exporters to get the advantage of the dual exchange rate.
But even before introducing the dual exchange rate system, the EXIM scripts were introduced, by which the additional premium was payable to the exports.
The EXIM policy was in a couple of volumes. It was very user unfriendly, and he set upon himself the task of getting it rewritten, and he succeeded in the sense that the two volumes were compressed into one, and it became much more reader friendly, and that is primarily because he focused his entire attention.
Exporters took well to the idea that while exports will become freer, imports also will become freer. It was a mindset that had to be broken.
So when you needed your raw materials or components or finished goods, you did not have to stand in line and do many other things to get those licenses. You were free. As suddenly the handcuffs had been taken off Indian industry.
Import licensing was the big control mechanism located in the Commerce Ministry. So he was actually giving up his own licensing power in exchange for giving exporters a better deal by introducing the exempt scrip.
There was a break, and then I came back as Commerce Minister, and we pushed exports. The first draft of the industrial policy resolution ran into trouble in the cabinet. So Mr. Narasimha Rao quickly said, all right, we'll come back, and then called me and Montek to his office and said, listen, do something.
Chidambaram, we quickly worked out the outline. We went to discuss it. He took me along. He'd gone to discuss it with Dr. Manmohan Singh as finance minister. And Dr. Singh agreed.
There was a paragraph on what Jawaharlal Nehru did. There was a paragraph on what Indira Gandhi did. There was a paragraph on what Rajiv Gandhi did. And we connected the three and then said, from these flow the new policy.
The same day, we all went along with the finance minister to meet the Prime Minister, Mr. Narasimha Rao, who approved it.
Then it was brought back to the cabinet. The cabinet approved it within minutes.
The biggest thing that he did as finance minister, when no one was expecting it, is the dream budget. You see, he reduced taxes. He incentivized tax payment.
All my training told me that high tax rates do not bring more revenue. It's lower tax rates which bring you more revenue.
That really led to the best compliance effect, which you can think of, the high point of the Lasser curve, as economists call it, where we really get the optimum principles of low rates with high compliance.
On the eve of his taking over as finance minister, the direct tax GDP ratio was only about 3.75, 3.8, and that went up to about 6.3, 6.4, almost close to 6.4 in 2007-8.
I'm glad that the three rates that I introduced then, 10, 20 and 30, have survived now for nearly 16, 17 years, and has also survived 4 finance ministers.
Three major concerns in terms of the reform of the fiscal structure: widening of the base, reducing the rates, and reducing the exemptions. I think he moved in all of these directions.
Well, I had a free hand. The Prime Minister, Devagowda, said you can do whatever you think is appropriate. I said, as long as we are at the crease, let's bat freely. Let's do the things that we want to do. Let's say the things we want to do. And I think for the first time, people recognize that the budget was a powerful platform to canvass ideas.
Most important, he changed the mood of the country. And he did this at a time of the Southeast Asian financial crisis.
The late Sri Moopanar and I and others broke away from the Congress party because Mr. Narasimha Rao was determined to forge an alliance with the AIADMK, and that was at that time the most hated party in Tamil Nadu. So we said, then under no circumstances can we ally with the AIADMK. He said no, so we left the party, formed our own party. We contested 20 seats out of 40 for Parliament. The remaining 20 went to the DMK. We won all 20. We won the assembly seats we contested. And lo and behold, we were in Delhi offering support to the Congress party to form a government, provided they elected a leader other than Mr. Narasimha Rao. That was the only condition which Mr. Moopanar and Mr. Karunanidhi had asked me to convey. So I came here, met an emissary of Mr. Narasimha Rao. We can disclose that now, the late Mr. S.P. Chauhan, at a common friend's place. And I said, this is the only condition, sir, and if you accept it, Congress can form the government. And our 40 parliamentary seats will support the Congress. Mr. Chauhan, of course, was a loyalist to Mr. Narasimha Rao. I said, you can become Prime Minister. Mr. Narasimha Rao turned down the suggestion. So we had no option but to refuse to support the Congress at that time. And then you know what happened. Mr. Vajpayee was invited. That government fell, and then the United Front government was formed. In this very room, Dr. Manmohan Singh was living here. So when I met him after his election, he said, you must help the government. I said, I've just returned to the party. Mrs. Gandhi was kind to ask me to come back to the party and offer me a ticket. I have been away from the party for nearly 7 or 8 years. So I don't expect to become a minister in the government. But then I got a call a couple of days from Mrs. Gandhi first, and then the Prime Minister, inviting me to join the government. Even then I didn't know the portfolio. Well, that is the highest growth rate period ever. Average for those 4 years was 8.5. Now, if you want to understand what 8.5 means, the average for the NDA government, including the last good year under Mr. Jaswant Singh, was 5.8. So 5.8 was turned around to 8.5. And we had 3 years of 9% growth. We could do a massive agricultural loan waiver program. We could expand the education loan program. We rolled out the Narega, now it's Manrega. We signed an agreement with the RBI that automatic monetization of government securities will be abolished.
That agreement was signed between Montec and we signed that. And that was despite some opposition from bureaucracy. Mr. Chidambaram overruled. Similarly, you cannot have a forex market unless the gold import also comes through official channels, and you had to liberalize it. And there are not many who are willing to take such a bold decision. He could take a bold decision.
And then the FRBM Act had been passed by the NDA government, but they did not have the courage to notify it. One of the first things I did after I took over as finance minister in May 2004 was notify the FRBM Act. FRBM is a great discipline.
On April 1, 2005, he introduced the value-added tax together with, of course, the states.
We called the finance ministers. And it became clear to me that the deal maker or deal breaker was the compensation that we will pay for anticipated losses as a result of introducing VAT. Parthasarathi Shom was there, and he said, let's take the risk. So we took the risk, and I told the finance minister, yes, I will compensate you for the VAT losses, go ahead.
That then clinched the issue, and the states came in. So he also revealed his negotiating ability in an inclusive way with the states.
The direct tax code is a child of his imagination, and it is his work. He entirely rewrote the tax code and made it simpler and easier to understand.
DTC, the entire bill had been drafted. I had applied my mind to every section, every line. We have a income tax guest house in Delhi. So we would retire to that guest house every weekend and again with my trusted stenographer start dictating every section of the act. It would come drafted from the task force in the CBDT, but then I would polish it and redraft it in what I think was appropriate legal language. And the entire DTC bill was drafted. It was a complete bill.
It was put on the web and so on. Actual cabinet approval of the DTC took place after he had demitted office as finance minister.
On the administration side also he rationalized, because he really underlined the importance of information technology. So we made, with his approval and encouragement, the a requirement that corporations will have to file electronically.
On the tax administration side, quite a lot of what has happened now, I mean, for example, e-filing of income tax returns, which is a huge game changer.
The taxpayer filing by small taxpayers, individual taxpayers, he encouraged them to also file electronically.
We made scrutiny computer-based again. The computer will pick up which cases will be scrutinized. We almost completely abolished discretion.
The big slew of items which we began on Bharat Nirman program in terms of extending the reach of credit, in terms of rural road connectivity, in terms of improved access to agriculture and farming, in terms of many initiatives in the area of education and health, I think all suggest that clearly he was seeking not only high rates of growth, but seeking a more egalitarian society.
We must understand the way the economy works. Each growth factor tends to support other factors to grow faster. If incomes rise, savings will rise. If savings will rise, investments will rise. If investments will rise, foreign investments will rise. If both domestic and foreign investments rise, again the growth rate will rise.
Tremendous improvement happened during that period in the health of the banking system. One of the very important banks had to be folded up and that had to be managed. One thing was that the finance minister was very clear that we have to improve the banking system. There should be no weak banks.
We had governors like Dr. Rangarajan, Dr. Bimal Jalan, and I started the practice of showing the budget speech to the RBI governor before it was delivered. Because I think fiscal policy and monetary policy have to work together, and both of them were fully involved at the final stages.
He is very keen on financial inclusion, but of course he believes in a banking system that is commercially viable. He wants a banking system to be efficient, and he wants any scheme that is introduced to be commercially balanced rather than a subsidized program.
A large number of programs where we reached out to the poor and said we will take these programs directly to the poor where possible because of high growth. If there is all-round growth and the growth is sustained over a period of time, even the very poor will come out of poverty. I don't think you need to panic or you need to despair that the poor will never come out of poverty. There are numerous examples of extremely poor countries having banished poverty. If we simply apply ourselves to promoting and sustaining high growth over a long period of time, even the poorest in India will come out of poverty. A rising tide lifts all boats. We had the Mumbai attack, and I was in my constituency, and it was a Saturday, and then I got a call saying rush back to Delhi, and I was told that a decision had been taken by him and the Congress president the previous night that I would move to home. I was very reluctant. For one reason or another, the 6 months is now extended to a little over 3 years now. Well, it's a job. Someone has to do the job.
He has brought about a massive modernization of the police forces. He has modernized the way in which the intelligence informations are gathered and collated.
In the integrated action plan that we've introduced in 60 districts of Naxal affected areas, we've empowered 3 district level officers. The collector, who's an IAS officer, the superintendent of police, who's an IPS officer, and the DFO, who's an Indian Forest Service officer. Empowered them and said, 3 members, you will now run this program.
So you can imagine that he had this totally brave idea that this untied money could go to a committee chaired by the district collector.
And that program is a roaring success. It's a runaway success. Skeptics like Montek and Jairam have now come to accept that that was the best model to administer that program.
There is a greater reassurance right now that we are in better shape, and that some of the difficulties that earlier looked like being impossible are being brought under control.
This is not an anti-Panchayati Raj move, but it is a pro-people move. It is actually a move to immediately take care of a dire need of people who have no facilities.
We all worked on it, but the fact that the Home Ministry is bringing about development measures in left-wing extremist areas is itself a tribute to his sagacity.
He may want to go back, be a finance minister or whatever, but I think we've got the best possible home minister that we could have.
My biggest sense of achievement is that we were able to demonstrate to this country that we can get on to the high growth path and sustain it for 3-4 years.
He's maybe impatient, but he's absolutely open to reason. On that, I can definitely say he's pretty transparent about the reasoning.
I sincerely hope that he has many, many more years in public life, and I think we need people with that degree of drive and clarity, and actually technical and professional competence are all rolled into one.
I wish we had more people who are impatient, because we need to get India moving faster. So some of the criticisms which are leveled at him are coming from people who may be finding it difficult to deal with him.
Those who throw charges know that I can hold my head high, look you in the eye and say, in all my political career, never once has anyone offered me or I've accepted 1 rupee by way of illegal gratification. I've never been asked by any Prime Minister or any of my party leaders to do anything that is either illegal or unethical. I've never been asked to collect money for the party, and I've never done that. Those who throw charges at me, and some of them are close friends, professional friends, friends otherwise who've known me for 20 years. They know that what they're saying and doing is completely untruthful.
It is only the brave who persist in trying to push against the wind. But I think you cannot doubt the clarity of their purpose or the integrity of their intentions.
There are some people who are professional baiters of the Congress party and the Congress leaders. I mean, we ignore them. Therefore, one is sometimes sad that one perhaps has remained in politics longer than one should have.